been in the business a little bit longer than most companies. I started in the year 2000. I was a professional rugby player, did my knee injury and decided that it wasn't quite the way that I wanted to be sure of my future. So I decided I'd been playing around with some proteins and low-calorie products for all my pals, and so I decided to set up VITHIT. And VITHIT was really created because I saw people running on treadmills and burning, let's say, about 180 calories. Then they were coming back off the back of that and taking a sports drink at the end of it. So this is back in around 2000 when sports drinks were really big, and they never realized that sports drinks were full of sugar, and sugar is not good for you. And so I just decided that this was a market that I thought I should create something a little bit different. I think my story is a little bit more about a list of failures that I've learned from. I don't think failures are particularly a bad thing. When I started off, I didn't have any history for working for any of the large companies. I was literally a professional rugby player, got injured, and kind of thought, right, you know, how do I create this product? So it was kind of before the internet was big, so you couldn't just go on and Google how to produce a product. So it took me 2 or 3 years to find the right producer and create the right product. Once I started that, I'd created my first brand, which was actually a continuation of this, was called VITS, but it failed miserably. The failure was behind the fact that the brand name didn't quite say enough about what it was. So I remember sitting at home wondering how I was going to change all this and how I was going to make the product more successful. And I came up with the brand name VITHIT, registered it straight away, and sales instantly rose. So I knew I was onto something good there. But the product was a little bit before the advanced stage of where people are in health right now. At the moment you see people doing yoga, CrossFit, everybody's into sports, people are running in the morning. Back then people weren't really that health conscious. It was only the odd person, the real heavy gym goer. It's now become very mainstream. So I think the market kind of moved towards me as well as me moving towards the market also. Well, the next stage for VITHIT was to get secured in my home country, which, as you can probably tell by my accent, is Ireland, even though I've lived in the UK for the last 5 years. So the next step was to make sure that the product was selling very well in Ireland. At the start, the whole project was an exercise in losing money. It was never, at the start, we were never particularly successful at what we did, but we kept making mistakes and I hung in there. I probably sold it personally across the country in my VITHIT van into maybe 3,000 or 4,000 stores across Ireland, and eventually then we were noticed by a large distributor. So that gave us a stage at which we could go international. Then I moved to the UK. That was about 5 years ago, and I basically went into local stores to get the product known and got a good rate of sale. Off the back of that, then I went to some of the larger supermarkets who ignored me for the first, I'd say, about year and a half. And then one of the larger supermarket chains actually said, look, we like this idea, let's try it. They put me on the dry shelf. I kept saying to them, look, I believe that we can do much better, which is where the product should be, not down by the Rice Krispies, it should be in the fridges. But you know, their answer was everybody says that to them. So being determined, I got on the back of a moped and I went around to a lot of their sites in London, and I got it into the fridges myself, sold it in there personally to about 55 stores, and off the back of that paid for research from those internal stores and realised that VITHIT was actually the number 1, 4, 6 and 8 selling product out of 49 competing products. So actually we were leading the category in those stores, so that was great news for me. I've always believed that fat doesn't make you fat, sugar does. The British government recently gave everyone a bit of a shock and brought in a sugar tax. That has kind of left a few of the larger companies in a bit of a tailspin. I believe the market is going towards products that are innovative and that are creative and that actually taste good. I think the British taste palates, they still don't want to take anything that doesn't taste good. So it's got to be low calories, it's got to be low in sugar, but particularly as well, it has to be tasty. I think that's a challenge for a lot of companies. I've worked on VITHIT products. I spend about 9 months getting the flavors right for each individual product. So there's a few years I've invested in there. I think a lot of the companies, the larger companies, are now looking at this going, wow, we have to change. It's not okay to just put diet in there. You have to take it a little bit step further. I think that I've heard actually there's a lot of research going on in the background and people are in a bit of a rush to bring in low calorie products. That will happen over the next 6 to 9 months. A lot of products are going to be launched in this area. But I wouldn't be rushing into it. They have to get it right. They have to get the taste right. They have to get low sugars, low calories. And if one of those items isn't right, the product will fail.